Liam Lawson, what a guy. In 2 race weekends since his return to F1, he has managed to get under the skin of arguably 2 of the most experienced drivers in F1 on the grid at the moment. At least one of them is the most experienced in Fernando Alonso and Checo Perez. Unbelievable. It's brilliant to see, because I think really he hasn't actually done anything wrong. Okay, he's apologised now for flipping the bird, the middle finger to Sergio Perez down the main straight after their battle, where I think Checo was totally in the wrong, not Liam Lawson. And back in Circuit of the Americas at the US Grand Prix in the sprint race, Liam basically just kept everything within the rules, within track limits, and for some reason Fernando Alonso took that personally and had a case of "they fight me too hard-itis," because Liam Lawson, other than maybe the initial send into turn 11, which is a corner that invites that anyway, because the racing line is very wide entry into that corner because it's almost more acute than a 90-degree angle. Fernando Alonso basically got caught napping, and Liam Lawson came through, got ahead at the apex first and caught him napping, yet Liam Lawson kept it well within track limits, and Alonso took that personally, because then Lawson had the audacity to defend the position from Fernando Alonso. I mean, God forbid you defend from Fernando, and maintained 16th place, I think it was. I think there was also a bit of frustration from Alonso that they were fighting for 16th place, and probably thought, why is Lawson fighting so hard? Well, Lawson is fighting so hard because he has 6 races to prove himself to Helmut Marko, to Christian Horner, the powers that be at Red Bull, that he deserves to, 1, be in that RB seat for next year, but in that Red Bull seat next year. I think it's quite well known, really, that as much as you may have favourable thoughts of Yuki Tsunoda and how much he deserves an opportunity in that seat, they don't see him as a Red Bull driver. He's a Honda driver. He is there because of the connection with Honda, and that's basically why. Otherwise, he would have at least had a minimum of 1 test with Red Bull, and he's only now getting that first opportunity at the end of the season. But Liam Lawson is a Red Bull driver through and through, and I think he will hopefully get an opportunity next year in that Red Bull, or at least on the grid, because he's too good. He's too good, and he's too much of a character to be left out of F1. He is exactly what F1 needs, similar to Colapinto. Let's be honest, the grid has been stale for quite some time. We've had kind of the same recycling of drivers who probably should have quit a couple of years ago, and because of that, they're all too nicey-nicey. They all know each other, they're all friends off track, and I'm not saying that you have to be worst enemies, but it's nice to see some needle come back between the drivers, because even with Lando and Max, I mean, Lando's been very, very accommodating of Max, hasn't he? And that's why Max, I think, has taken liberties out on circuit. And I've said it before, Lando needs to be more of a dick. And it's nice to see Liam Lawson stand up for himself as well and kind of have that dickish attitude. However, while there are similarities to him and Max Verstappen when Max first arrived on the scene, and him doing the same thing and getting the veterans all riled up, Max did it with a very controversial driving style that is still being discussed today. I mean, just look at the race weekends. But Liam is doing it within the rules and within track limits. And, well, I mean, yeah, first Fernando Alonso, then Checo Perez at his home race. I mean, brilliant. And there's pictures of him being pulled aside by Alonso and Checo after both races, and them really being irate in the media afterwards as well. Alonso threatened Liam Lawson. He retaliated against Liam Lawson and ruined his outlap in qualifying in Circuit of the Americas for the main race. Like, he actually did that, and he is quoted as such, saying, "I'll get him back." I'm paraphrasing there, but pretty much threatened him that he'll get him back. And then Checo, well, I mean, in my opinion, Liam, for one, hasn't done anything wrong with Alonso, and he didn't do anything wrong with Checo either. They made contact, but the initial move and basically digging between the two of them and this falling out happened with Checo frustrated that, for one, he is out of position, 2, he's struggling and he's at his home race and there's more pressure on him at his home race, and he sends it down the inside into turn 4, basically trying to channel his inner Max Verstappen, but he is nowhere near ahead of the apex, ahead at the apex as the rules currently states you should be, and runs Liam Lawson basically off track. Liam Lawson had 2 wheels outside the white line touching the grass, and Liam really could have bowed out of that corner and done what Lando did, come back onto the racing surface ahead and stated that he'd been rammed off the track and got Sergio Perez a 10-second time penalty, as we saw other drivers get issued. So the fact Liam Lawson kept in it, wanted to fight fair, then left his car basically alongside Checo into the next corner. But because Checo's already run him so far wide, he's so acute into the next corner, which is a 90-degree corner, he's run into Checo's side slightly, or his front wheel did, and they made contact and the side pod got damaged. And of course that pretty much ruined Checo's pace because he lost a lot of downforce and performance, but that's Checo's own doing for being too aggressive and just misjudging the situation. And to come out at Liam Lawson afterwards and have the attitude that he had and have a go at him, I mean, I think part of that is because he knows Lawson is the one who's vying for his seat. I mean, Helmut Marko did have a go basically at Liam Lawson in the media, which I find bizarre, to be honest with you. I think that's what you want to see from a driver, maybe because he's looking at the amount of zeros on the end of the check that Carlos Slim sends him each month for having Checo in the main Red Bull seat. And he doesn't want to lose that, at least until the end of the season. But Checo just doesn't really, his comments are just ridiculous in the media. Checo stated, "I think it was just a little bit too much. He did the same with Fernando, with Franco at the end, and there are no penalties. I don't have a relationship with him. The way he is coming to Formula 1, I don't think he has the right attitude for it. He needs to be a bit more humble. When a 2-time champion was saying things last weekend, he completely ignored him. When you come to Formula 1, you're obviously very hungry, but you have to be respectful on track and off track, and I don't think he's showing the right attitude. I think he's a great driver, and I hope for him that he can step back and learn from it." I'm sorry, Checo, but that is complete and utter bullcrap. Just because you've had your arse handed to you, don't go have a go at Liam Lawson. You bitched about him, and yes, Liam Lawson flipped him the bird down the main straight, and Liam Lawson has come out and apologised for that. But do you know what? He's entitled to do so. They get very heated, very high adrenaline running through their veins when they are in these Formula 1 cars, let alone when they go side by side. And Lawson was, as I've mentioned, pretty much forced off track, and Liam Lawson kept it on the racing surface. Checo, you're the one who left him no room. Have some self-awareness yourself. How about you step back and have a look at how you went racing Liam Lawson? And there is nowhere in any rule book that states, regardless of how many titles, how many races, how many laps your competitors have conducted, but you need to take their advice and you need to listen to their words. Because I'm sorry, as I've mentioned already, Liam Lawson did absolutely nothing wrong with how he fought Fernando Alonso last weekend and how he fought Checo this time around. Now, in regards to the Colapinto incident, that was just hard racing. Now, Colapinto unfortunately ended up with a 10-second time penalty due to the current racing rules, because Lawson was just ahead at the apex into turn 1, and as we know, with the current racing rules, he's then entitled to force the overtaking car, the outside car of Colapinto, off the racing surface. And well, they both were still side by side. Colapinto was ahead going into the next corner, but because he was already behind at the previous corner, and Liam Lawson kind of has got that judgment of that he has the right of passage to the next corner, basically. Colapinto was deemed as rejoining the track in an unsafe manner, and that's why Liam Lawson got damage to his front wing and Colapinto got a 10-second time penalty. I don't like the racing rules. I don't know how many times I need to say it. There's absolutely no need in that scenario for Lawson to force Colapinto off. they both have plenty of room and plenty of control underneath them and skill to go side by side through those corners fairly and leave racing room. But those are not the racing rules. So Lawson did what he was entitled to do, and we saw that from a number of drivers throughout the race. And some executed it very well, and some executed it very poorly, i.e. Sergio Perez on Lawson himself. So yeah, I don't subscribe to the idea from Perez there that Lawson should have got a penalty for Colapinto, because by the letter of the law, Colapinto is doing the wrong. But I don't have to also agree with how that whole scenario played out. It was totally unnecessary. But you know what? Colapinto didn't bitch about it in the interviews afterwards, but Checo did. But Checo's the one under pressure. But I just think it's great to see. It's great to see youngsters coming through. It's about damn time. The grid has been too stagnant for too long. The same old drivers on the grid. They've got two pally, and now some youngsters have come through and they're trying to prove themselves, and Lawson is under pressure and has to prove himself. They don't like it. They expect the same treatment. Well, I'm sorry. No. Absolutely no. It's what F1 needs, and it doesn't. And it's great to see Lawson also stick up for himself off the racetrack. So yeah, what do you think of Liam Lawson? Do you think he'd be a great addition to F1 next year? Do you think he should be in that Red Bull seat? I think he should at least minimum be on the grid next year, and it's great to see these youngsters come through. I cannot wait for 2025, because I think a number of these older drivers are going to get a reality check, especially Fernando Alonso, if he's having to fight Kimi Antonelli, Ollie Behrman, Lawson again, Colapinto. I mean, not ruling out, of course, Jack Doohan as well. These guys are going to come in and want to prove themselves, and it's the biggest shake-up of the F1 grid for quite some time. And it's long overdue and well needed, considering we started this year without, for the first time in F1 history, where the previous year's grid was the same at the start of the next season. And it kind of has showed, really, with how pally they are. In sport, you don't have to get on with everyone. You don't have to get on with everyone. That's not to say that you have to be an absolute dick, but there's nothing to say that you have to show, just because you're a youngster and come through, that you have to show the elders respect. Sorry, what did they say? Put that helmet on and friendships go out the window. So, yeah, I think it's just a case of Checo, one rule for Alonso and Checo Perez, and another rule for everyone else. They don't like it when people fight them too hard. So, yeah. Absolutely brilliant impact from Liam Lawson. Hopefully it continues for the remaining 4 races, and I hope we see him on the grid next season, regardless if he's in the top team of Red Bull or alongside Yuki in that RB car.